Hello, it's March 2022, and I'm going to be talking about freedom. People who believe, which is to make an uninformed conclusion, or people who think they are free. And no, this has nothing to do with if you're free, act free, although it might have ties to what I'm about to talk about. And I've also talked about currency, money, fiat currency in particular, and how all that works. But this is to talk about debt slavery. Now, I've done a video with regards to your ownership, and that relates to your birth certificate as well as your, in Canada, social insurance number, SIN number, or in the United States, your social security number. Every country has a version of this, and how these documents, we'll call them, actually is your ownership. That's your ownership card. You carry around your ownership and you show your ownership. And I've also in those videos talked about how there is a monetary value to those documents, but they don't belong to the person that's being owned. I want to make that very clear. Many free men on the land types are saying, oh, it belongs to you, you can cash it in, pay bills, and all this other nonsense. No. A lot of false claims, and when you dig into that, and I did this about maybe 12 years ago, and all these claims end up being false. But whatever, I digress. In this video, it's not about that. What I really want to focus on is, and it ties in with debt slavery, is the slavery itself. And I've mentioned this briefly over the years with what's called temping agencies. That's what they're commonly referred to as. And when you look at a temping agency, that's just legalized slavery, literally. And I've known a few people who own them, who built them, own them. Huge money, massive money. And you think about their role, and they might have half a dozen to a big one, a dozen employees actually working for them in their office, recruiting workers and even cold calling potential businesses that need workers. And when you think about how these places operate, and I want to really get into their popularity, how their popularity has grown to the point now where a lot of jobs, I would dare say a lot of jobs, most, deal with these temping agencies. People are willing to go work for a temping agency just to get a job. They're making usually minimum wage, and the temping agency is pocketing the rest. And I'm just going to use some arbitrary numbers. Say a temping agency will charge their client, the employer, say $50 an hour for a worker. They pay the worker, say, $15. The rest goes to the temping agency. And yes, there's overhead and stuff, but nothing like what you would think. This type of employment is slavery, because the slave master in this scenario, the temping agency, they're making money off of someone else's actual physical labor to make phone calls and make sure that everything, their client is happy. Not really caring too much about, for example, the employee, the person that's needing to work. And they bypass so much. For example, after a certain period of time, depending on where you are, it differs. That's why I'm not being specific. You'd be entitled, working for a company, to benefits, for example. And what they do is, because you're a temporary employee, the day before you are laid off, even for a week or two, and then you're allowed to go back for that same duration, and the cycle repeats. That way you're never entitled to benefits. And if you get injured on the job, heaven forbid that you have to file a workers' compensation claim, because you're not working again for that company anyway. And they get past so many different loopholes and everything else where it used to be. And forget about pensions. You're not getting a pension or anything because you're temporary. And there's so many loopholes and people are missing out on so much. But the point is the slavery. Now, if you think that's bad enough, look at, for example, factories and how everything's being automated. There is a factory of a car manufacturer that they weren't manufacturing a different product, completely, and this is somewhere in Europe, automated. And the presenter was just, really saying that robots are literally doing everything. They have a handful of factory workers there. So not only is the slave to a temping agency existing, but they're pushing them out with robots and automation and everything else. Completely terrible. And what future do these people have when, for example, they're not entitled to a pension where at one time you would work for a company for 20, 30 years, all your life, and you can retire and you have a pension. And even people who are getting pensions, pension plans are disappearing. Government types of pensions are disappearing. Everything's disappearing. This is the world that we live in, and it's sad. Completely sad. And yes, technology is a two-edged sword. It's a blessing and a curse. Because where it could make, say, a job safer or even easier for a worker, when that technology grows, that worker has no more job. And this is a real clear example of modern day slavery, except we call it a temporary worker, and you're entitled to nothing. And from my understanding, talking with different people, you're not treated very well, because if you don't work out, they deem you not working out or suitable for a job. There's 200-300 other people on their list, and they'll just go down the list, find the right one, find the right person, the person who's willing to work a job for minimum wage, where, for example, somebody who would be employed through the employer would be making 2-3 times the same amount, doing the same job. There's always someone willing to do the work for less, just so they could work. And it's sad. It's really sad to see this in today's world. But this is where we're at. And it's not getting any better, especially with the automation, with robots and everything, doing everything from welding to moving product around. And the few workers in these types of factories that still have a job, for example, we're putting a bolt and tightening up the bolt. Once they can figure out how a robot can do that, then it's game over. They'll just have maintenance people and a few people just making sure their operations are going good, and that's it. And then you compound that with everything else, with jobs being sent to different countries where it could be manufactured, but it's cheaper. And the bottom line to all this is profits, money. Somebody higher up is saying, hey, we can save money. It's all about save money. And this really segues into why in this world that people have been socially conditioned to accept everything has to be done quickly and efficiently. Everything is, when you don't even have to talk about work, but just people in their personal lives talk about speed and efficiency and multitasking, and just in their own home. Your own home, where you should be able to be comfortable and be happy and work at your leisure, do whatever chores and it is that you need to. But no, it's everybody's been so socially conditioned. Speed, efficiency, time management, all this has been drilled into people's minds. Socially conditioned, socially engineered. How much more is there that has been socially conditioned and engineered into people's, as a descriptive psyche, that they're not even aware of. How many people watching this video never even thought about the things I've just talked about? And just to sum it all up, to finish up this video, even when you work for a business directly, a company directly, you could be on contract, not even dealing with a temping agency, a contract, which could be renewable. But when you work contract, then, well, I know there's case law, there's precedents that have argued that you're actually an employee, successful arguments for that. But still, it's just a hassle. And you wouldn't be taking it to court until there was a problem. And what if it's too late? Too much time has passed. Just things to think about, you know, reflecting on our society today with slavery. People talk about slavery in the past, where there were white slaves. Even to this day, there are white slaves. And talking about any other ethnic group, their slavery days and everything else, and everyone's enslaving everyone. This has been since the beginning. Someone having dominance over someone else. But you don't need to see chains and physical, emotional suffering to be a slave or to have slavery in this world. Everyone's a debt slave, and that gets expanded on, as I just said. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me all the time, when is it going to get easier? When you die.